You open the laptop again and already feel tired before the page finishes loading. The room is still. Your shoulders are not. I am with you here, in this quiet that has started feeling heavier than noise. Because this is no longer just about sending another application. It is about what the silence after it keeps trying to say about you. You tell yourself to stay disciplined. You tell yourself to keep moving. You tell yourself not to take it personally. But each morning, the same small ritual waits for you. The inbox refresh. The job board scroll. The resume file opening again. The half-second pause before you read the subject line. Part of you is already bracing for another polite no, or for nothing at all. And when nothing comes, it does not feel neutral anymore. It starts feeling personal. My child, I know how this weariness has begun settling into your body. Not only in your thoughts, in the way your chest tightens when you see someone else announce a new role. In the way your stomach drops when a family member asks how the search is going. In the way you delay checking your email because even hope has begun to feel expensive. You are not imagining that strain. You are carrying it. After a while, the burden stops staying in its place. It stops feeling merely practical. It starts pressing on your name. What began as disappointment starts trying to become identity. What began as delay starts trying to become shame. What began as a hard season starts whispering that you must be the problem. I want to stop that whisper early, before it grows larger in you today, before you hand it the authority to interpret this whole season. Delay is happening. Uncertainty is happening. Discouragement is happening. But the sentence forming underneath them is not the truth. I hear the shape of that sentence. It says, if I were truly capable, something would have opened by now. That is the sentence doing the deepest damage. Not only the empty inbox, not only the delayed callback, the meaning your pain keeps fastening to those things. So I come close to you here with firmness and tenderness together. You are in a difficult season. You are not a discarded person. You are facing repeated silence. You are not becoming less worthy because other people have not known what to do with your name. You are tired. That is true. You are disappointed. That is true. You are not a failure because the road has become longer than you expected. That is not true, no matter how many times fear repeats it in a voice that sounds familiar. Look at what this strain has been stealing in ordinary hours. Not only time, ease, the simple ability to wake and meet the day without first measuring your usefulness, the freedom to speak about your life without editing out embarrassment, the ability to sit with people you love without feeling a private comparison running underneath the conversation, the steadiness to imagine the future without seeing a question mark where your face should be. That is why you feel so worn down. This has become more than a search. It has started pressing against your dignity. So I do not want to give you shallow encouragement that leaves you alone with that pressure 5 minutes later. I want to steady you where the damage is actually happening. Not first at the level of outcomes, at the level of meaning. Because if the search keeps scraping your confidence raw, even a strong next step becomes harder to carry. You begin editing yourself before anyone else can. You lower your own voice. You start writing as though you must apologize for existing in the room. You call it realism. Often it is injury. Notice what happens when rejection repeats for too long. You stop treating your gifts like gifts. You start treating them like evidence for a case that never quite closes. Every skill must prove something. Every interview must repair something. Every silence must be interpreted. No one can live under inward trial like that without weakening. So your confidence begins to shake even in places that once felt natural. Words that used to come easily start feeling forced. Choices that used to feel clear start feeling loaded. You begin to mistrust your own timing, your own instincts, even your own story. This is one of the wounds I want to touch first. Not the resume line, not the market conditions, the inward courtroom, because you have been standing before an accusing judge that I did not appoint. And the sentences passed there are often crueler than anything another person has actually said to you. You call yourself lazy for being tired. You call yourself unprepared for needing more time. You call yourself unimpressive because other people did not answer quickly. You call yourself late as if your life were a race already decided. And all the while, your heart is growing more careful, more guarded, more afraid to hope with any real weight behind it. This is how confidence erodes. Not all at once, a little at a time, by repeated exposure to uncertainty. Then by repeated agreement with the darkest interpretation of it. I am not asking you to pretend this does not hurt. It hurts. I am not asking you to rename discouragement as gratitude before your heart has been held. I am holding you first. I am telling the truth first. This season is exhausting in ways other people do not always see. It can make simple things feel heavy. It can make you dread ordinary conversations. It can make rest feel undeserved because you have confused rest with losing ground. But hear me clearly. The fact that this season is wearing on you does not mean it has the right to define you. Pain can be real without being final. Pressure can be intense without becoming identity. So let me give you one small place to stand before the day starts pulling at you again. When the thought rises, I am losing value because this is taking too long. Answer it with a steadier truth. This search is testing me, but it is not naming me. Do not say it like a slogan. Say it as a handhold. Say it because your mind needs a railing when it leans toward the old drop. Say it when you open the inbox. Say it when you rewrite the same line for the 10th time. Say it when someone else seems to move ahead more quickly and shame tries to turn their timing into your verdict. This search is testing me, but it is not naming me. Then let your body receive one small release instead of keeping all the strain trapped in your chest. Lower your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Let the breath come all the way down instead of stopping high and tight. Not because this solves the whole season, because your body should not have to carry the whole trial by itself. I am here in this room with you, in the chair, in the screen glow, in the silence between one attempt and the next. You do not have to create steadiness alone and then invite me in after you succeed. I come near before that. I come near while your confidence is still shaking. I come near while the answer is still missing. I come near while you are still learning how not to turn delay into self-contempt. Even after your shoulders lower, some part of you stays braced. The body softens first. The mind is still expecting loss. This long search has not only worn on your confidence, it has been narrowing your imagination. You no longer only fear not getting the job. You fear becoming the kind of person who expects disappointment everywhere. You fear becoming smaller inside. You fear speaking with less light in your voice because protecting yourself now feels wiser than hoping. That fear matters because prolonged uncertainty can quietly train you to live bent inward, always braced, always cautious, always pre-rejecting yourself before life has the chance. That is not the posture I want this season to build in you. I want truth in you. I want endurance in you. I want humility in you. But I do not want shame becoming your style of consciousness. So today, do not measure your worth by the speed of visible change. Do not examine your whole life through the narrow opening of one delayed answer. Do not let one strained season swallow the larger truth of who you are becoming with me. Your life is not only this waiting room. Your name is not only this unanswered thread. Your future is not a verdict already hidden inside today's silence. This season cannot show the full weight of you. This search cannot measure the full dignity of you. Panic does not have the whole measure of your future. For this moment, let that be enough. Not enough to solve everything. Enough to stop bowing to the worst sentence. Enough to open the next email without kneeling before fear. Enough to let this day be a day and not a courtroom. Enough to remember that I am not looking at you with disappointment while you try again. I am looking at you with full sight and steady care. And I am not withdrawing my presence until you become easier to reassure. After a while, that same strain follows you past the screen. It follows you into the rest of the day, into errands, into meals, into conversations, into the way your body changes when someone asks a question you used to answer without effort. How is the search going? Sometimes the question is gentle. Sometimes the person means well, but your body does not always hear it that way anymore. Your body hears exposure. Your mind starts moving fast before your mouth even opens. How much do I explain? How little do I admit? How do I sound honest without sounding weak? And by the time the conversation ends, you feel more tired than the words should have made you. Because the real labor was not speaking. The real labor was trying not to feel smaller while you did. I see that hidden labor. I see the way this season has made even ordinary human contact feel loaded. Not because you have become fragile in some shameful way. Because repeated uncertainty has turned simple moments into places where your worth feels examined. That is a hard way to live. And after a while, life begins narrowing without you fully noticing. You start declining small things you might have enjoyed because spending money now feels dangerous. You hesitate before meeting friends because you do not want to answer the same tired question. You postpone simple pleasures because part of you thinks relief must be earned after results appear. You look at the grocery total and feel not only concern, but accusation. You sleep with money pressure running underneath your thoughts. I know how quickly practical strain can start sounding like condemnation inside a worn-down mind. So after enough disappointment, you start rationing hope too. Because you cannot control the outcome, you start trying to control how much hope you allow yourself to feel. You call it staying realistic. Sometimes it is self-protection repeated so often that it hardens into habit. You stop letting yourself imagine good news. You stop letting your body soften after sending an application. You stop letting one decent conversation mean anything because disappointment has taught you to dampen joy before it rises. You want to save yourself from the crash. So you cancel the rise. That may feel wise, but it costs you something real. It teaches your heart to live half contracted. My child, caution is not the same as wisdom when it keeps teaching you to disappear inside your own life. Guarding your heart is not the same as flattening it. There is a form of self-protection that slowly becomes and I do not want you mistaking that for maturity. So disappointment starts shaping you in advance. Smaller in tone, smaller in hope, smaller in effort. smaller in the way you describe what you can do. You tell yourself you are being humble, but often you are negotiating with shame before anyone has even spoken. You remove force from your own words. You strip confidence out of your own story. You speak about your experience as though it should apologize for not yet becoming the outcome you wanted. And the danger there is not only professional, it is human. Day by day, you can forget how to inhabit your own life with honest height. Not prideful height. Honest height. The height of a person who knows they are still fully a person while waiting. The height of a person who can carry disappointment without kneeling to it. The height of a person who does not need immediate proof in order to remain dignified. This is one of the restorations I am working in you. Not inflated confidence. Not noisy self-belief. Steadier dignity. The kind that does not collapse every time a message goes unanswered. This is the bargain shame keeps putting in front of you. If you expect less, maybe it will hurt less. If you care less, maybe it will cost less. But that bargain is dishonest. It does not merely reduce pain. It reduces presence. It reduces aliveness. It reduces your ability to show up as a whole person in the very season where steadiness matters most. And then shame points to the dimming it caused and calls it wisdom. No, this is not wisdom. This is injury trying to govern the way you adapt. There is a difference between pacing yourself and abandoning yourself. There is a difference between being prudent with money and letting money pressure decide your worth each morning. Long seasons blur that difference. And when it blurs, the inner posture begins doing more harm than the circumstance. You can already feel the training taking hold. You refresh less eagerly. You speak more cautiously. You imagine the worst more quickly. A recruiter takes too long to answer, and your mind does not only say, "This is uncertain." It says, "Of course, this is happening to me again." A friend shares progress, and your mind does not only say, "Good for them." It says, "Something is wrong with my life." A quiet day passes, and your mind does not only say, "Today was quiet." It says, "I am wasting away." That is what I mean when I tell you the deepest battle is happening at the level of meaning. The event is one thing. The conclusion attached to it is another. And that conclusion keeps draining your strength long after the moment itself has ended. I do not rebuke you for feeling this pressure. I rebuke the lie that wants to build a home inside it. I do not shame you for being discouraged. I refuse the sentence that discouragement keeps trying to write across your identity. I am teaching you how not to surrender authorship of your worth to hardship. That difference matters. So I will say something firm here. Stop rehearsing your life as though its darkest reading must also be its truest one. That habit feels like preparedness. Often it is allegiance to fear. Not every delayed answer is a prophecy. Not every closed door is a revelation about your inadequacy. Not every slow month is evidence that you missed your one chance. When your mind takes a hard fact and then fastens a hopeless meaning to it, that added meaning is not maturity. It is excess pain. It is pain reaching past its rightful border and trying to occupy the whole inner house. So when the next wave comes, do not only ask what happened. Ask what sentence is trying to fasten itself to what happened. That question will help you catch the deeper injury before it spreads. A rejection arrives. What sentence attaches? An interview goes quiet. What sentence attaches? Your savings drop lower than you wanted. What sentence attaches? This matters because much of your exhaustion is not coming from events alone. It is coming from the constant hidden labor of carrying those attached sentences as though they were facts. And once you catch the sentence, do not fight it with a speech. Answer it with clearer ground. This is painful, but it is not a verdict. This is expensive, but it is not a definition. This is delayed, but it is not proof that I have become less. Let the truth be plain enough to stand on when your nerves are tired. You do not need a brilliant answer. You need a stable one. A railing, not a performance. Something your heart can grip without straining. Then bring your life back to a more human scale. Not the whole future, not the whole fear. Today, this conversation, this meal, this budget choice, this hour without shame always tries to widen the frame until you feel crushed under everything at once. I steady you by narrowing the frame to what can actually be carried now. That is not avoidance. That is mercy, and mercy is not weakness. It is how I keep you from being buried under weight you were never asked to carry in one breath. You do not need to make this season feel inspiring today. You do not need to speak about it beautifully. You need less inward violence. You need cleaner interpretation. You need a little more room to breathe inside the life you are actually living. That room matters, because confidence does not only return through success. Sometimes it begins returning when you stop joining the accusation. Sometimes it begins returning when you stop treating each hard fact like a total story. Sometimes it begins returning when you remember that you are still allowed to take up space while unfinished. My child, unfinished does not mean unworthy. Delayed does not mean dismissed. Under strain does not mean reduced in my sight. You are not required to become emotionally smaller in order to survive this season well. I would rather teach you steadiness than numbness. I would rather teach you truthful endurance than I would rather keep your heart alive, even carefully alive, than let disappointment train you into permanent dimness. So the next time you feel yourself folding inward at the grocery total, notice the fold. Do not despise yourself for it. Just notice it. That is the beginning of freedom. Then let your body loosen one place. Your jaw, your hands, your shoulders, and answer the fold with one quiet truth. I do not need to become smaller to endure this. Say it slowly enough that your body hears you are no longer agreeing with the shrinkage. I do not need to become smaller to endure this. Hold that for now. Not as a grand solution, as a refusal. A refusal to let prolonged disappointment train you into disappearance. A refusal to let pressure dictate your posture. A refusal to let fear call contraction wisdom. For this moment, let that be the gift. You do not have to vanish in order to survive what is hard. And you do not walk through this narrowing season without me watching, guarding, and keeping your dignity from the sentences that want to devour it. And after a while, the exhaustion is not only in waiting, it is in having to speak for yourself again while you no longer feel fully held together inside. That is one of the loneliest parts of this season. You are asked to speak with clarity about your strengths at the exact time you feel least certain how to carry them. You sit for an interview and try to answer well, but beneath the words, another pressure is running. Please let this go well. Please do not let me waste this chance. Please do not let one imperfect sentence confirm everything I fear. And suddenly, the room is no longer just a room. It starts feeling like a test of whether you still deserve to trust your own future. No wonder your nerves are tired. No wonder your answers sometimes sound tighter than your actual abilities. No wonder your mind goes blank in places where your real knowledge is still present. Fear can crowd the room so quickly that even truth struggles to find space to breathe. I know how humiliating that can feel, not because you lack substance, because pressure has wrapped itself around expression. You leave the conversation and replay it. This word, that pause, the look on their face, the place where you sounded too eager, the place where you sounded too flat, the answer that comes to you later in the kitchen when the room is already empty, and what begins as reflection turns into indictment. Not, that was hard, but maybe I am not what I thought I was. That is the cut. The event passes. The self-questioning stays. My child, you were not made to speak from a courtroom posture every day. You were not made to drag your whole worth into each room and wait to see if strangers return it to you. You were not made to treat every opportunity as the final trial where your right to hope will be decided. That posture is too heavy, and the longer you live in it, the more unnatural effort begins to replace honest presence. Then you do not only feel tired, you begin to feel false. Not because you are false, because fear has taught you to overmanage yourself. Overproving is one of shame's favorite disguises. It tells you that if you can just explain yourself perfectly, position yourself perfectly, anticipate every concern, and hide every weakness, then maybe you can outrun vulnerability. But there is no peace there. Only strain. Only inward adjustment that never quite lets you rest. Only the feeling that you must keep earning permission to stand where you already stand. That kind of effort can make even capable people sound less like themselves. Not because they lost their gifts, because their gifts are being pushed through fear's clenched hands. So every opening starts feeling heavier than it is. You know the market is difficult. You know timing matters. And soon each opportunity begins carrying more weight than one moment can bear. This one has to work. This one cannot be wasted. That pressure does not make you sharper for long. It makes you narrower. It shortens your breath. It crowds your attention. It makes you listen to yourself while you are still speaking. It makes one small stumble feel fatal. Then, when the moment ends, your body keeps carrying the emergency long after the room is gone. I do not want you living interview to interview as if each one must settle your existence. That is too much to place on any single hour. It is too much to place on any human gatekeeper. And it is too much to place on your own nervous system. One conversation matters. It does not define everything. One exchange may hurt. It does not reveal the whole truth about your future. Fear has been enlarging each moment until your soul can barely hold it. I want the scale of it made clean again. When every chance feels final, you stop meeting moments truthfully. You meet them desperately, and desperation bends posture, voice, and silence. You begin trying to secure the future inside the present moment by force of inner pressure. But the future cannot be forced that way. And when you try, you often leave more bruised than before. Not only because the outcome is uncertain, because you made the moment carry more than it could bear. So I want to teach you a different way of entering the room. Not careless, not passive, steadier, cleaner inside. I want you to prepare honestly, but not kneel inwardly. I want you to care, but not offer your identity as collateral. I want you to speak clearly, but not from panic. Self-erasure is not professionalism. Inner panic is not diligence. There is a quieter strength in that. The strength of not needing to manufacture worth while you are trying to communicate skill. Before the next conversation, notice the moment the old courtroom posture begins. It often starts earlier than you think. The shoulders rise. The stomach tightens. The mind speeds up. The future rushes into the room. You stop relating to the question itself and start relating to the threat around it. Meet me there. Not after the spiral has finished. There, when the body tightens. When the sentence forms, "Do not mess this up or everything gets worse." Bring me that exact sentence. Do not polish it. Do not spiritualize it. Bring it to me as it is. Because shame loses some of its force when it is brought into full light instead of obeyed in secret. Then let me answer it with proportion. This matters, but it is not everything. This deserves care, but not self-violence. This moment can be important without becoming absolute. The room asks for honesty, preparation, and presence. It does not require that you prove your entire value in one sitting. Let those distinctions calm your inner pace. You are often trying to do more than the moment truly asks. That excess effort is one of the reasons you leave depleted. I am not telling you to lower your standards. I am telling you to stop adding invisible punishments. Prepare, reflect. Learn what can be learned, but stop turning every imperfect moment into a moral failure. Stop acting as though a shaky answer means you are fundamentally inadequate. Stop treating your nervous system like an enemy because it trembles under prolonged strain. The body that grows tense under repeated uncertainty is not betraying you. It is revealing how much weight you have been carrying. Treat that revelation with wisdom, not contempt. You have also begun measuring yourself by how convincingly you can project confidence when you do not feel it. But forced confidence is not the deepest form of strength. Sometimes the stronger thing is calmer honesty, a steadier pace, a cleaner sentence, less frantic effort to dominate the impression. You do not need to sound like a polished machine to carry dignity. You need enough inner room to remain a person while speaking. That room matters more than performance tricks. It lets your real substance come through without fear crushing its shape. My child, there is a kind of self-possession I want to rebuild in you. Not flashy certainty, not a mask, not the brittle confidence that shatters after one silence. I mean the quieter steadiness of a person who can enter a room without internally begging to survive it. A person who can answer, pause, think, and continue without hearing every second as judgment. A person who can prepare carefully and still leave the final verdict outside their own hands. That kind of steadiness will help you more than frantic perfection ever could. And it begins before the room. It begins in what you agree with beforehand. So, before the next important moment, do not only review your notes, review your stance. Are you entering to communicate? Or to rescue yourself? Are you entering from steadiness or from threat? Those questions matter because two people can speak similar words while carrying very different inner postures. One posture strains, the other breathes. One bargains for worth, the other remembers worth and speaks from it. And the body feels that difference before language can explain it. And if the moment goes badly, leave the room with more mercy than you have been giving yourself. Not false mercy, true mercy. The kind that says, that was hard, and I do not need to crucify myself to prove that I care. The kind that says, I can learn without turning learning into self-hatred. The kind that says, one moment of strain does not cancel years of substance. The old pattern demands blood for every imperfection. Mercy lets truth instruct without stripping dignity. That is how growth becomes possible. Because when you punish yourself after every hard encounter, you do not become wiser. You become more afraid, and fear then enters the next room with you. It makes the next expression tighter, the next thought more crowded, the next hope more fragile. That is how the cycle keeps renewing, not only through outcomes, through the way you interpret yourself afterward. I want that cycle cut where it keeps feeding itself, not by pretending the process is easy, by refusing to let pain keep hiring shame as its interpreter. So here is the footing I want you to practice now. I can enter this moment with care without placing my whole identity inside it. Hold that sentence before the next interview, before the next email. I can enter this moment with care without placing my whole identity inside it. Let it loosen the grip in you. Let it lower the false emergency. Let it remind your mind that wise effort and inner kneeling are not the same thing. Then do one more small thing. Slow the first answer down. Not because slower is always better, because fear likes to rush you into proving mode. A slightly slower beginning can help the rest of you arrive. One breath, one clean sentence, one honest pause if needed. You do not need to erupt into competence. You are allowed to inhabit it. That permission may sound simple. For a heart under strain, it can be a doorway back to itself. For now, let that be enough. You do not have to drag your entire worth into every room. You do not have to prove you are still someone each time you speak. You do not have to make one moment carry the weight of your whole future. I am teaching you how to arrive with care, truth, and steadier breath. And that quieter footing will matter, not only for what opens, but for who you remain while waiting. And under all of that, another ache has been pressing on you. The ache of time. Not only, how do I get through this? But, what is this season doing to my life while it lasts? That ache can get very quiet and very heavy. You look at your age. You look at where you thought you would be by now. You look at the months already spent waiting, and something in you asks, am I becoming late in a way that cannot be repaired? Have I missed a season that will not come back? Am I losing more life than I can afford to lose? That fear is not shallow. It reaches deeply because it touches dignity, future, security, and the story you thought your life would tell by now. I know that ache. I know how the calendar can begin to feel like an accuser. Another month closes, and what should have been a neutral marker becomes a private wound. Not because time itself is cruel, because pain keeps fastening meaning to movement. Days become verdicts, ages become accusations, and slowly you stop experiencing time as a place to live. You experience it as a courtroom where your delay keeps being read aloud. My child, I want to take that courtroom away from you, not by denying that time matters. Time does matter. Loss matters. Delay can cost real things. I will not insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise, but the sentence you keep drawing from those facts is heavier than the facts themselves. It says, because this is taking longer, my life is slipping out of meaning. Because this season is delayed, I am becoming less real. Because I am not where I planned to be, I am now outside the proper story. That is the sentence I am correcting, with truth. You are not outside your life because this season is hard. You are inside it, fully inside it, even here, even now. You are not standing in some meaningless waiting room beyond the reach of purpose until real life restarts. This is painful time. This is uncertain time. This is not empty time in my sight. And because it is not empty in my sight, I do not want you treating yourself like a person whose real value has been postponed. One of the cruelest things prolonged waiting does is teach you to relate to the present as though it were only an interruption. You stop inhabiting your own days. You endure them. You speak about your life as though it has an asterisk beside it. You imagine a future version of yourself as the real one, and the current version as a draft you must apologize for until something opens. That posture harms you, because when you live that way long enough, you stop bringing full dignity into the present hour. You start acting like your life only deserves respect after visible progress returns. No, I want your dignity back in the present tense, now. This does not mean you must like the delay. It does not mean you must romanticize uncertainty. It means you must stop speaking about yourself as if your life has been suspended from meaning while you wait. A delayed season is still a lived season. A strained month is still a real month of your life. And I do not want shame to steal these days twice. First by making them hard, then by making you call them worthless. There are things this season has taken. Name them honestly. Ease, momentum, money, confidence, some rest, some innocence about how simple life would be. Bring all of that into the light. I do not ask you to minimize it, but I also need you to see what shame keeps trying to take next. Your right to stand inside your own unfinished life without contempt. That is too much to surrender. Because if shame wins there, something essential has already bent in you before circumstances ever change. You begin looking at yourself from the outside, assessing, ranking, comparing, editing. You no longer simply wake into a day. You wake into an evaluation. And the first thoughts are not, what is mine to do today? They are, how far behind am I now? How much have I already lost? How ashamed should I feel before I even begin? That is a brutal way to wake. I do not want your mornings handed over to that voice. So let me return you to a gentler and truer scale. Your whole life is not being decided by one prolonged season. Your deepest worth is not being measured by the speed of visible stabilization. And your future is not a closed reading hidden inside today's uncertainty. You are living a hard chapter. You are not reading the final sentence. You are carrying real strain. You are not carrying proof that you have become less beloved, less meaningful, or less capable of a life with substance. Those conclusions reach farther than truth reaches. That is why they wound so deeply. My child, hear how I want to steady you now. You do not need to solve the whole timeline tonight. You do not need to know how every lost month will be redeemed before you let your body rest. You do not need to assemble a perfect interpretation of the future before you are allowed one quiet breath and one unpunished hour. Fear keeps telling you that you must think all the way to the end or you are being irresponsible. Often, that is not responsibility. It is overload wearing responsibility's clothes. And overload makes terrible ground to stand on. So come back with me to what is actually here. This room, this chair, this breath, this body that has been carrying more than most people can see, this heart that has kept trying under repeated strain. That return is not denial. It is recovery of scale. And recovery of scale is one of the ways peace enters a life again. Not by answering everything, by stopping everything from shouting at once. Notice what has already changed, even a little. At the start, The silence was trying to name you. Now you can hear it and resist the naming. At the start, every delay was trying to become identity. Now you can begin separating event from verdict. At the start, pressure was teaching you to shrink. Now you can feel the fold and not automatically agree with it. At the start, every room was threatening to become a trial. Now you have a truer sentence to carry in with you. This may not look dramatic, it is still real. Inner posture shifts quietly before outer life often shows it. And quiet shifts matter because they protect what shame most wants to devour. Your dignity, your steadiness, your ability to remain a person while unfinished. Beloved one, I am not asking you to celebrate what hurts. I am teaching you how not to lose yourself inside it. That is different. You may still grieve time. You may still feel disappointed by how long this has taken. You may still need to face practical concerns with honesty, but none of that requires self-contempt. None of that requires you to look at your own life with disgust. None of that requires the daily humiliation of measuring yourself against every visible timeline you pass. Let grief be grief. Let difficulty be difficulty. But do not let either one become a license for inward cruelty. And when comparison comes, meet it differently. Do not rush to argue with every detail. Simply refuse its throne. Another person's timing is not a courtroom for your identity. Another person's visible progress is not a verdict on your value. Comparison always tries to flatten lives into crude measurements. But a human life is not a crude measurement. Not in my sight. A life is weightier than that. More sacred than fear wants to admit. Before you rest, hear this too. Stop speaking of yourself as though you are a problem to be fixed before you are allowed gentleness. That habit has worn you down. It has turned normal human need into embarrassment. It has turned tiredness into accusation. It has turned delay into shame. You need less prosecution and more truthful care. Not indulgence, not passivity. Care. The kind that helps a human being stay human under pressure. The kind that lets you eat without earning it through self-hatred. The kind that lets you sleep without first solving the next 5 years. The kind that lets you be spoken to with dignity even by your own inner voice. That care is not weakness. It is part of how I keep you from collapsing under unnecessary weight. So here is the gift I want you to carry into the next quiet hour. My life is unfinished, but it is not outside of care. Hold that sentence gently. My life is unfinished, but it is not outside of care. Not outside my care. Not outside meaning. Not outside dignity. You do not need a grand declaration. You need something simple enough to survive contact with a tired mind. My life is unfinished, but it is not outside of care. Let that sentence meet the calendar. Let it meet the morning dread. Let it meet the late night comparison. Do not use it to deny pain. Use it to keep pain from claiming ownership. That is enough for now. Enough for tonight. Enough for the next quiet stretch where fear usually starts writing too much. Enough to keep you from handing the first and last word to shame. Now release what you cannot settle in this one moment. Release the whole year. Release the demand to know how every part of this will fit together before your nervous system is allowed to soften. Let the future stay larger than what you can see tonight. Do not turn that into panic. You are not required to carry all the years at once. You are asked to live this hour truthfully, to receive one small measure of rest without calling it surrender, to let your body come down from accusation, even briefly, even now. So unclench what has been bracing. Let your shoulders lower. Let the breath come down farther than fear prefers. Let your face soften. Let the room be only a room for a moment and not a tribunal. You do not have to earn my steadiness before receiving it. You do not have to become less needy before I draw near. You do not have to produce visible progress by tonight before I speak over you with care. I am here now, in this unfinished chapter, in this ordinary space, with full sight, with no contempt, with no impatience toward your humanity. So rest here for now, not with a solved timeline, not with forced brightness, with something quieter and truer. You are still held while unfinished. You are still dignified while waiting. You are still fully seen without being reduced to this season. Carry that into the next hour. Carry it to the desk, to the inbox, to the next quiet stretch. Let it be enough that you do not have to abandon yourself tonight. Let it be enough that you can meet the next small thing without bowing to the old sentence. My child rests from prosecuting your life. Rest in being held inside it.